I'ma keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. Ooh. I'ma keep winning, winning. You can try to save yourself, keep winning, but you only go.
What's going on, guys? JK, I'm back with another video. Today, I'm going to be ranking the top 5 head coaching candidates that I believe for the New York Jets and the top 5 guys that they should consider and go with. But before we get started, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel to make sure you're keeping up with all the NFL content that might be coming at you throughout free agency, NFL draft, and the NFL playoffs. So here went ahead and made a tier system with the top 5 guys. I went ahead and listed all the guys that the New York Jets have interviewed for the head coaching job, that I think that are actually serious candidates that they can consider. So from left to right, I have Josh McCown, who's OC for the Minnesota Vikings, Bobby Slowick, who's OC for the Houston Texans, Joe Brady, OC for the Buffalo Bills, Brian Flores, who's defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, Arthur Smith, OC for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ron Rivera, who's actually not coaching right now. He was a former head coach most recently with the Panthers and the Washington Commanders. Rex Ryan, who was an old New York Jets coach in the 2010s, last guy to make back-to-back AFC championship appearances as head coach of New York Jets. Matt Nagy, who's currently OC of the Kansas City Chiefs and was head coach for the Chicago Bears for a couple of years, and Steve Spagnuolo, who was defense coordinator for the Chiefs currently, former head coach of the Rams and interim for the Giants. So these are all guys that the New York Jets have interviewed and kind of gone through the process or are going to interview. Some of these guys are currently in the playoffs, so they cannot get hired until their team get eliminated. So that kind of creates a whole caveat for the next couple of weeks of what's all going to be going on. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and start these rankings. Number 5 top candidate that I think the New York Jets should look at is Josh McCown. Josh McCown's OC for the Minnesota Vikings. Most likely, I think that they should look at him as OC potentially moving from the Minnesota Vikings if they end up getting someone from the Minnesota Vikings like a Brian Flores, and he could potentially be a head coach in a couple of years. I don't necessarily think he's ready. The Texans interviewed him a couple of years ago, right after he got done playing. He technically kind of got to start coaching at the New York Jets because whenever the New York Jets drafted Sam Darnold, he was actually the backup that they had brought in to kind of teach Sam Darnold how to kind of be a pro, how to go about himself, develop, how to read defenses, stuff like that. He was kind of the mentor for Sam Darnold. And then as Sam Darnold kind of went on, Josh McCown started coaching with the Texans. Then he moved to the Minnesota Vikings when they brought in Sam Darnold this year. And he's kind of been the development of Sam Darnold this year and in past years with the New York Jets. So I think he's done a pretty good job with that. Um, as of right now, this would kind of be a shot in the dark that I think you're just like, all right, I'm just gonna go ahead and give this guy a head coaching job now before anybody else does in a couple of years. And kind of just take a chance on him to see if he's ready. But right now, I think he's more of an OC type pick if you want to pick somebody else to be the head coach and bring him in. So not necessarily the top guy, but I think that this is one of the better candidates here. But not necessarily ready enough to make that jump as a head coach. Number 4, I think, is Bobby Slowick, who's the OC for the Houston Texans. If you look at what he's done the last couple of years, he's been OC of the Texans. When they hired DeMeco Ryans, this is who they brought in, who he brought in. I think that he's been the main catalyst for CJ Stroud's development. Last year, he was a way hotter name in the head coaching market because CJ Stroud had just had this historic season as a rookie and was pretty much had like one of the better rookie years that we've seen as a quarterback. And that Houston Texans offense was pretty much dominant. I wouldn't necessarily say huge dominant, but compared to what it was, and with CJ Stroud coming in as a rookie and having an amazing year, that kind of shocked everybody over Bryce Young. Everybody was kind of looking at Bobby Slowick here. Although the Houston Texans kind of struggled and taken a step back this year, I do think that we shouldn't take out Bobby Slowick just because that one year that he's had as that's been struggling this year. I think that he could be a legit candidate. That could be a young offensive coach for whoever you want to go with if you want to take one more year with Rodgers. But after that, the rookie quarterback that you're going to have to bring in, whether it be somebody next year, maybe a Drew Aller, even though he struggled, or whatever they do with trading up, I think he could be a great head coach that could come in, be a young offensive guy, and be able to kind of point the Jets in the right direction with the quarterback development, kind of, fix the offense that we haven't had for however many years since probably the best offense we've had since 2015, with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. But I think that he would be a little bit better than Josh McCown. I feel like he's more head coach ready, and he's been mostly responsible for the Houston Texans' success on the offensive side of the ball with CJ Stroud. Moving on to number three. Number three, I have Joe Brady. This was a guy that's had recent history and has had head coaching buds on and off for the last like 6, 7 years, pretty much in the NFL. He originally got his name. He was the OC for the LSU Tigers in 2019 when they had one of the best college football teams of all time. He was calling plays for that Joe Burrow Heisman season with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, everybody like that. Now the argument could be, was it him or was the team just so stacked? I think it was a little bit of both. That's what led to him being one of the best college football teams in history and having that historic 2019 season with Joe Burrow winning the Heisman. And then he moved on. He went to the Carolina Panthers for a little bit. He kind of struggled at the Panthers, but if you really go back and look at it, Matt Rhule was getting fired. That team was one of the least talented teams that you'll ever see. And that Carolina Panthers team, they just traded away Christian McCaffrey. They didn't have any offensive weapons outside DJ Moore. His quarterback was Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold was just now getting moved on from the New York Jets. He didn't really have much opportunities. He didn't have any weapons to go to. The O-line wasn't that good. They didn't have Ike Ekwonu yet, stuff like that. So he kind of struggles there, takes a step back after he kind of gets let go of the Panthers as OC. He becomes the Buffalo Bills as quarterback coach with Josh Allen, while Ken Dorsey is OC last year. And what happens is Ken Dorsey's OC, Buffalo Bills are kind of struggling, and they fire Ken Dorsey. When they fire Ken Dorsey, they make Joe Brady interim OC for the remainder of the season. And this kind of turns around the Buffalo Bills' offense. Josh Allen before this and Ken Dorsey's system was more of a turnover machine. He took more chances. He would just kind of turn the ball over whenever he was trying to make plays and trying to do too much. Joe Brady kind of turns this around, establishes the run game with more James Cook in the last year or so. And this leads to them finishing out last season very strong. And then it leads into this season when Josh Allen looks like more the MVP frontrunner. And this creates the more crazy Josh Allen in his offense. He ends up developing Josh Allen and what he is now, with the not many turnovers, making crazy plays, established a run game with James Cook, and he pretty much got the Buffalo Bills offense to where it is today over the last year and a half. And now they're one of the top Super Bowl favorites, to be able to take down the Kansas City Chiefs to be able to win the AFC. It's pretty much either Josh Allen or Lamar that's going to win the NFL MVP. And that's mainly thanking Joe Brady and his offensive system that was able to turn around the Buffalo Bills, and be able to take Josh Allen's turnovers away while he's being able to keep the big play mentality and make the best plays going on. So I think Joe Brady, if you wanted to go this route of a young offensive guy, I think Joe Brady's a top candidate here because this is all three of these guys so far have been the young offensive guys that could turn around the Jets offense. I think if you're wanting to go that direction, Joe Brady's the way to go. And I think he could be a sneaky good hire that not a lot of people are talking about right now, that they kind of mention him as a possibility, but I think he could be a really good option if you want to go that route and be able to get the young offensive guy in the building to kind of develop the next quarterback. So number two, I have Brian Flores. Part of the reason why Brian Flores is such a good candidate kind of goes along with the Josh McCown situation. So Brian Flores was the former Miami Dolphins head coach, and he kind of had the situation there where the Dolphins were wanting to tank for Tua, and they were kind of wanting Brian Flores to lose games. and he went out and he had one of the least talented Dolphins on the roster, and he went out and won 5 games with it, and the owners were not very happy, and that's kind of created attention. He also wanted Justin Herbert over Tua, according to reports, and the ownership obviously were going to go with Tua no matter what. So this kind of created the distance between Tua and Brian Flores. He's also not very lovey-dovey type coach that's going to create relationships with players. He's more of like the Bill Belichick hard ass type guy that's going to hold players accountable. And this is something I think that the Jets really need, along with just a great coach to be able to be a leader. I think they need a culture builder and somebody that's going to establish the culture. I think this is what Robert Saleh tried to do, but not necessarily in the best way. He was too buddy buddy with the team, didn't hold everybody accountable, led the league in penalties at one point. And this is, I think, is the opposite of Brian Flores because he's more of the hard on, hold players accountable, you know, kind of get into him a little bit. And his Miami Dolphins teams were one of the least penalized teams in the NFL when he's head coach. And his defense, looking at his defense, he's completely turned around the Minnesota Vikings defense once he became the defense coordinator. Their crazy blitz packages led them to a 14-3 record. And it kind of makes them like one of the more crazier front sevens with his crazy blitz and lines of who's going to drop, who's going to come. It would definitely make the Jets more of a blitz heavy team. While I think he'd be able to stay in the 4-3 because they switch up all the time on the Minnesota Vikings with the 4-3 to the 3-4. So I think one of the biggest things that make him so like valuable to the New York Jets is not only him on defense and building the culture, but also the ability to have been working with Josh McCown and bring him in as the potential OC for the New York Jets and completely turn around the offense for the next couple of years until he would become a head coach. I think this combination of Brian Flores and Josh McCown might be one of the best in this for their situation to be able to develop whoever comes in and kind of build a culture for the New York Jets despite owner Woody Johnson. And then the number one candidate that I think the New York Jets need to hire. I didn't include Mike Vrabel here at all because I kind of figured that he's going to be going to the New York Jets. Or he's going to be going to the New England Patriots no matter what, and they're probably going to hire him. Also, didn't include Ben Johnson because he was not interested in the New York Jets job, so they didn't ask him to interview. So, with the top candidates that I think the New York Jets should go after, number one, Aaron Glenn, who's the defense coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Aaron Glenn was a guy that's played for the Jets. He was drafted by the Jets. He excelled at a high level when he played. He holds players accountable. He's kind of helped and been the number two guy to Dan Campbell and changing around the culture. The more clips you see this guy, the more you fall in love with him. That he's able to hold relationships and be a great players coach while keeping the expectation as the expectation and holding the players accountable and making sure that they're doing what they need to get done. He's turned around that whole Detroit Lions defense, even though he's dealt with many injuries this year. You could just see the big thing that everybody conferencing about is last week with that Minnesota Vikings game. Most of his defense is out. He got a couple guys back, but he's able to completely shut down Kevin O'Connell's offense with Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson. He runs man, which is a totally crazy thing against Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, but it works out because he's able to get the pressure on Sam Darnold. I think that he could come in and create the best culture. Him and Brian Flores are very similar to me. I think Aaron Glenn kind of holds a more special place with the New York Jets. Um, the biggest concern would be offense. It's rumored that his OC might be John Morton, which is a former New York Jets offensive coordinator in 2017. That was a little bit successful at the time. He also is being highly considered for the New Orleans Saints job because he also played there and has connections there. And he just interviewed for him today as I'm recording this. So Aaron Glenn is going to be kind of being fought out for by the New York Jets and New Orleans Saints, whichever one he's want to go to. I think the New York Jets need to prioritize him, try to get him, and then if they don't get him, eventually fall down the list, go to Brian Flores next, and go on so on and so forth. But Aaron Glenn's going to be the main culture builder, I think. That's going to hold players accountable. while being able to create that locker room environment that's going to be safe for the players and be able to kind of build the connection between all of them. So this is my top 5 head coaching candidates for New York Jets, which way that they should go, which way I think would be best to be able to take the franchise, and that's going to be able to build the culture. I think some of these guys at the bottom are going to get another head coaching chance, like a Matt Nagy, somebody else. I think a Matt Nagy in a couple of years, somebody's going to be able to take a chance on him. I think he's an underrated coach that did a great job with Chicago Bears, but just kind of got a raw deal. But Aaron Glenn, I think, is definitely the top candidate. And then I think they need at least, if they can't get Aaron Glenn, Brian Flores needs to be the next guy up. And if they want to go to the young offensive guy, Joe Brady's definitely the guy that they need to get. So this is over my top 5 rankings. Leave a comment below with any thoughts, opinions that you have. Maybe my takes are trash. Maybe you agree with some of them. I'd love to have a conversation with some people about this, maybe some Jets fans in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe to make sure that you're keeping up with the NFL content I'm going to be creating. And thanks for watching.
Yeah, feel like John Moran. Need a triple-double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got a couple. I don't drop the ball. Now I never fumble. I'm the MVP. Now I feel like Russell. Feel like John Moran. Need a triple-double.